Take a moment now. Close your eyes if you can, and without judgment, notice. Notice one thing about your body that is carrying you. Maybe it's your legs, still sore from walking yet determined to keep moving. Maybe it's your lungs, quietly filling and releasing air without ever asking for thanks. Notice one thing around you that holds you. The chair beneath you, the bed cradling your weight, the steady floor that has always kept you from falling. Notice one small victory from the past week, even if it feels insignificant. Maybe you showed up to work on a hard day. Maybe you called a friend. Maybe you simply endured. These things count. They all count. Nothing else needs to follow. You don't need to turn this exercise into a habit tracker or a new routine. You don't need to measure it or optimize it. Sometimes noticing is enough. Sometimes being is enough. The truth is, weekends were never meant to be extensions of our productivity. They were meant as space, as pause. Ancient cultures, no matter their geography, almost always carved out a time of rest, a rhythm of work and release. Not because they were lazy, but because they understood something we often forget. Life requires balance. A field cannot be harvested every day. Soil must be left fallow to restore its strength. Even rivers slow when they bend. Why do we imagine that humans are different? As you move through this day, notice how often your mind tries to pull you back into fixing mode. You'll catch it, like a whisper. You should be doing more. You should be better. And when it comes, instead of resisting with force, just smile at it. Recognize it as the old voice of a culture that cannot sit still. Then gently remind yourself, not today. Today is for being, not building. Because when you strip it down, life is not just about what you accomplish, but also about what you allow yourself to feel. Have you ever noticed that your most vivid memories are rarely the moments of optimization? Not the day you crossed off 10 tasks on your list, but the afternoon you let yourself wander. The evening you laughed without agenda. The morning you sat by a window and felt the sun on your skin. Those were not moments of fixing. They were moments of living. And they linger because they were whole in themselves, not a means to another end. So maybe you don't need to fix yourself today. Maybe you don't need to climb, strive, polish, or perfect. Maybe all you need is to inhabit this Saturday fully. To let the coffee taste exactly as it does. To hear the birds without naming them. To notice your breath without lengthening it. To let silence be enough company. And in doing so, you might discover something surprising. That the version of you who simply exists, unoptimized and unpolished, is not only enough, but is the truest you of all. The day drifts forward slowly, and there's a temptation to fill it, to stuff it with plans, with errands, with things that make you feel useful. It's almost reflex now, this reaching for tasks, as if rest needs to be justified by accomplishment. You think, maybe if I go to the store, maybe if I clean the floors, maybe if I catch up on the work I've been putting off, then I'll deserve to rest. But here's the quiet truth. You don't need to earn stillness. You don't need to bargain for it. It is not a prize handed out to the most productive. It is a right, a rhythm, a return to balance. The mind will try to resist this because it has been trained for years to believe that doing is always better than being. But if you step back and notice, you'll see that some of the most important processes in nature happen not in action, but in pause. Trees do not grow taller every day. There are seasons where they appear dormant, yet beneath the bark, life is reorganizing itself, strengthening its core. Oceans rise and fall with the tide, not in a constant push, but in a dance of advance and retreat. Even your body obeys this cycle. Every night when you sleep, your brain sorts through the noise of the day, consolidating memories, repairing cells, resetting. Without that pause, you cannot function. And yet, we have learned to treat pauses as empty space, as wasted potential. We equate quiet with laziness, stillness with weakness, We push against them with caffeine, with schedules, with endless scrolling to fill the silence. But maybe this weekend is a chance to practice something radical, to let the pause be enough, to let the silence be its own form of nourishment. Think about the way music works. A song without pauses, without rests, is just noise, overwhelming and unbearable. It's the spaces between the notes that allow the melody to breathe, that give the sound its meaning. Life is no different. The quiet moments give shape to the busy ones. The stillness is not absence, it's presence of another kind. So what would it look like if you gave yourself that presence today? Maybe it's choosing not to answer every notification, letting your phone stay face down for an hour, even if it hums impatiently. Maybe it's sitting on the porch with no agenda, watching the light shift across the trees. Maybe it's lying on the couch, not asleep, not working, just existing. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, like something is wrong, like you should be moving. But stay with it. That discomfort is just the residue of habit, the leftover noise of a culture that forgot how to rest. Beneath it, there's another feeling waiting, a softer one, the quiet hum of simply being alive. The science supports this too. Studies on attention and creativity show that the brain needs downtime to function well. When you allow yourself to daydream, when you stare out the window or let your mind wander aimlessly, something remarkable happens. The default mode network of your brain activates. So as the afternoon light changes, as the weekend drifts along, ask yourself, what if nothing needed fixing today? What if the to-do list could stay unfinished? The laundry could wait. The inbox could remain unopened. What if you trusted that the world will not collapse if you choose stillness? Because it won't. And in fact, when you return to action, you might find that everything feels lighter, more manageable, simply because you allowed yourself to pause. Take another small breath now, deeper than usual. Let it fill your lungs fully, then let it out slowly. Notice the way your chest rises and falls without you having to command it. This is what life does when you let it. It carries you, even when you are not pushing. It sustains you, even when you are not fixing. And maybe that's the reminder you needed this weekend, that the most essential parts of your existence require nothing from you but permission. Evening begins to settle in, and the pace of the day softens further. You might feel a tug of guilt, a small voice reminding you of all the things you should have done. The dishes in the sink, the unanswered messages, the goals you promised yourself you'd start on. That voice is stubborn. It doesn't disappear just because the weekend arrives. It echoes with years of conditioning, whispering that stillness is indulgence, that rest is irresponsible. But pause for a moment and really consider, whose voice is that? Who decided that your worth must always be measured by productivity? Often, it's not your own belief, but something borrowed, from culture, from upbringing, from a society that equates human value with output. What if you didn't listen to it tonight? What if, instead of treating the day as wasted, you saw it as necessary? A body cannot keep sprinting without breath. A heart cannot keep giving without renewal. A mind cannot keep learning without space. Even machines break down under constant strain, but we expect ourselves to run endlessly without pause. That expectation is not noble, it's cruel, and you deserve better than cruelty. So you sink into the quiet, maybe with a cup of tea, maybe with nothing but the dim light of evening around you. You let the air feel heavy in a comforting way, wrapping you in its stillness. And slowly, as the minutes stretch without pressure, something begins to shift inside you. The tension in your shoulders loosens, the grip of your jaw softens, your breath steadies. You realize that all day you've been holding yourself tighter than you knew, clenching against the world, bracing for demands that never arrived. And in this release, a truth rises. Maybe you were never broken. Maybe all you needed was to stop convincing yourself you were. Think back on the moments in your life when you felt most alive. They were not the times you were ticking off goals or perfecting routines. They were the moments of presence. The laughter that came unexpectedly with a friend. The walk at sunset when the air smelled like earth and leaves. The song that made you cry because it spoke a truth you didn't know you carried. These were not moments of fixing, they were moments of being. And they mattered more than all the self-improvement checklists combined. We forget that happiness is often quiet. It rarely announces itself with fireworks. It slips in during the pauses. There's a paradox here worth noticing. The less you push yourself to change, the more room you create for natural change to happen. When you stop berating yourself for not being enough, you begin to feel enough. When you stop demanding constant growth, you give yourself the safety to grow. It's like loosening your grip on a seed. You can't force it to sprout by pulling at it, but when you simply water it and wait, it finds its way on its own. So tonight, as the weekend folds around you, imagine loosening that grip. Imagine saying, for this one day, I am not a project. I am not a problem. I am not an unfinished draft. I am a whole human being, messy and tired and alive, and that is enough. Let the thought settle into you like warmth. Let it reach the places that ache for gentleness, because they do ache, even if you've learned to ignore them. If you find your mind still resisting, still fighting for something to control, offer it something small and grounding. Notice the colors in the room around you. Listen closely to a single sound. Maybe the hum of a refrigerator. Maybe the chirping outside. Feel the texture of the fabric beneath your fingers. These simple anchors remind the mind that presence is enough, that life exists in these tiny sensory moments just as much as in the big achievements. And here's the secret. Tomorrow, the world will still be there. The tasks, the goals, the challenges, they will wait. But this moment, this breath, this particular evening, once it's gone forever. Do you really want to trade it for the endless chase of better? Or will you let it be what it already is? Perfect in its imperfection, fleeting and precious, not needing to be improved, but simply noticed. The day darkens now, and maybe you feel a little lighter. Not because you accomplished more, but because you allowed yourself to stop. You let yourself be human. And in that softness, in that refusal to fix, you found a quiet kind of repair you couldn't have engineered. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the real fixing happens when you let go of fixing. Night has settled in, and the world outside your window feels hushed, as if it too has surrendered to stillness. The noise of the day has faded, the sun has gone, and all that remains is the quiet rhythm of evening. Shadows lengthening, the occasional hum of traffic, a breeze slipping through the cracks. This is the moment when you could turn inward fully, when the pressure to perform finally loosens, and you are left alone with yourself. For many, this is the hardest part of the day, because in silence, the questions arrive. Am I doing enough? Am I enough? Should I be somewhere else, someone else, further along than this? These questions echo in the dark, and they can feel heavier at night when there are fewer distractions to drown them out. But tonight, maybe you can meet them differently. Instead of rushing to answer, instead of turning them into new projects to solve, maybe you can simply let them pass through you. Maybe you can remind yourself gently, I don't need to fix myself tonight. It's almost strange to say those words out loud. We are taught from so early on that to be good is to improve, to grow, to always be climbing some invisible ladder. And yes, there are times when effort matters, when change is necessary. But what about the spaces between? What about the days when striving is not what you need? When all you really need is the safe. So as you sit here in the dim light, consider this. The version of you that exists right now, with all your flaws and unfinished edges, is still worthy of love. Not the future version of you who gets everything right, Not the past version of you who might have seemed braver or more carefree. The version who is here, tonight, breathing and carrying all the weight of your own humanity, that version is enough. You don't need to prove yourself to this night. You don't need to fill it with productivity or evidence of progress. You can simply belong to it. Let the darkness wrap around you like a blanket. Let your body sink into the chair, the bed, the couch, wherever you rest. Let your breath fall into its natural rhythm. There is nothing to earn here. There is only being. And in that being, something almost miraculous happens. The very thing you have been chasing, peace, renewal, clarity, often arrives not when you fight for it, but when you stop fighting at all. Like water finding its level, like the moon rising without being asked. Restoration comes quietly, almost shyly, once you've made space for it. You don't command it into existence, you allow it. Think of the sky at night. No one would call it broken because it is not filled with sun. We understand that its darkness is part of its rhythm, that stars need shadow to be seen. Yet when we look at ourselves, we treat our dark hours as flaws, as failures, instead of simply another part of the cycle. What if you trusted your rhythm the way you trust the skies? What if you believed that your stillness is not emptiness, but a necessary half of being alive? The more you lean into this, the more you realize life is not a straight line of constant progress. It is closer to a tide, ebbing and flowing, rising and falling. To resist that is to exhaust yourself against something bigger than you. To surrender to it is to find a different kind of strength, one that doesn't come from control, but from trust. Trust that pausing is not wasting. Trust that resting is not failing. Trust that being is not lesser than becoming. And maybe tomorrow you will wake with more energy. Maybe you will want to clean the kitchen, to answer those emails, to go for that run. And if you do, wonderful. But if you don't, that will be okay too. Because your worth was never measured by how much you accomplish in a single day. Your worth is not fragile. It doesn't vanish when you slow down. It is steady like the ground beneath you, like the breath inside you, like the night sky above you. So as this weekend closes, let yourself soften into the truth you've been circling all along. You are not a problem to solve. You are not a broken machine that needs constant repairing. You are a human being, and that alone is extraordinary. The fact that you wake, that you breathe, that you feel joy and sorrow and longing, that is enough. That is everything. Tonight, as you